Hi, everybody. We're going to get started now. So here we go.
Thank you, Paul. All right, so good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for joining our webinar. So today we're going to be talking a little bit how to take yourself as an author to the next level as a publisher. So we're going to start the webinar off with a simple overview of what print on demand is, as well as what being a publisher actually means in today's day and age. After that, we're going to dive into a couple of different tools that'll help you take you to the next level as a publisher, no matter what your businesses are. So this webinar should last probably 30 to 40 minutes or so, and then we're going to open it up the remaining time to any questions that you guys might have. If you do have a question, simply submit your question by clicking on the questions button, and we'll try our best to answer it after we wrap things up. So my name is Graham Williams. I'm the email marketing manager here at Lulu.
Hi, I'm Lolly Zamowski. I am the social media manager here.
Hi, my name is Paul Hobday, and I'm the senior copywriter.
Hi, I'm Chelsea Bennett. I'm the marketing communications specialist, and I'm going to turn it back over to Graham to get started. Everybody give Graham a warm round of applause. Just kidding, we can't hear you.
So if you're not familiar with Lulu.com already, we are a self-publishing company based here in Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina. So Lulu was founded in 2002 by entrepreneur and Red Hat founder Bob Young. We are actually a smaller company, a little bit less than 100 employees here, but we're also super proud of our community outreach. So as you can see, we are a certified B Corp, which is something that we really take pride in. If you're wondering what a B Corp might mean, a B Corp is kind of to business as organic is to milk. So we're all about sustainability and trying to be green here. And additionally, we're also really about community outreach as well. So we're really involved with our local community, working with Habitat for Humanity all the time, as well as our Lulu e-games with NC State University. But enough about us. Let's talk a little bit about print on demand. So I'm going to turn this over to Lolly, and she's going to give us a little tidbits of information here.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lolly. So I'm going to really just start out with some of the basics and kind of go over what is print on demand. So if you're not too familiar with print on demand, or pretty sure that you get the gist or have seen it in action, print on demand technology has allowed for the creation of a variety of materials these days, such as custom shirts or stickers or books. And you've probably seen a lot of these POD products from creators on Etsy, Shopify, WooCommerce, for example. But today, we're really just going to focus on print on demand books. So, how does it work? Well, historically, publishers have printed books through offset printing, where you'd have to pay for a high volume of books in a single run. So now with digital printing, print-on-demand books are printed as soon as they are ordered. The shift to digital printing has allowed print-on-demand books to be the same quality as offset printing and with a reduced cost. Most importantly, though, this really has now given authors the ability to really take control of all aspects of their work, from creating to publishing and to selling their books. So, what can you print on demand? So these are just a few examples that you may not have thought of. So as you can see, print-on-demand books can be used for a range of purposes. If you're a fiction author that needs to print a novel, if you're a chef that wants to show off your best recipes in a cookbook, or a teacher that needs a new edition of their textbook, maybe you're a business that wants to print employee handbooks, or a retail store that needs a spring lookbook. Or just, a nonprofit if you want to raise money with a photo book or a calendar. So these are just a few examples. But now that you kind of have an idea of what you can print on demand, let's talk about some of the benefits. So some of the benefits, first, it's environmentally friendly. Print on demand allows you to print just one book or up to 10,000 books or more. So this is one way that you can really minimize your environmental impact. With print on demand, there's also no inventory, so you don't have to pay large upfront costs. You don't have to hold and be responsible for a huge inventory, and you don't need to continue hosting those packing parties in your garage anymore. Also, multiple formats. So, print on demand allows for more binding types, format, and layout options. Really allows you can really stay agile with your publishing strategy. So since you don't have to order 1,000 books at once, you don't have to be stuck with all of those books that may not be perfect or relevant for what you're going for anymore. So you can easily make revisions and print exactly what you need. So for example, if you chose a format and you want to change it to something different later, or maybe you just want to update one section in your employee handbook for 2019, or maybe you have an event coming up and you really want to personalize your product, your book. So you can easily make revisions and make the changes that you need to keep your content relevant and up to date. So now that we kind of know a little bit about how print on demand works, we're going to talk about the different types of publishers using print on demand. So I'm going to hand it on over to Paul.
Thank you, Lolly. And hi, everybody. I hope you're all enjoying your lunch. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the flavors of publisher that you'll get out there in the publishing world. So to dive right into that one, let's just define what a publisher is. So obviously, a publisher is a little bit broader than a book, but for our purposes, we're going to restrict it to books. And as you can see from this slide, we define it very simply as any individual who creates and sells books. Now we can expand that definition a little bit too and say any one business or individual who creates and sells books. So the important differentiator there is that beyond just the individual, a publisher is kind of a business-driven entity. You know, you're trying to not only create books, but sell them as well. And so when it comes to defining the many methods of doing the creating and selling of books, I tend to think about 4 different flavors, really. So what we're going to do real quickly is kind of go through, well, not actually that quickly. I'm going to go into some detail. We're going to look at these 4 different flavors. And I will say right up front, you know, this doesn't cover all of them. There are infinitely different kinds of publishers, just like anything out there on the internet today. There are lots of different ways to do it. But we're trying to kind of break it down into 4 categories that let you really understand how publishing is working today. So first up, we've got the big 5, who I'm going to assume all of you, since you know what Lulu is, you're here, you're interested in this, you're probably readers, you've probably been in a bookstore recently, and you've certainly seen books with those logos on the spine. Penguin Random House, Hachette, Simon Schuster, Macmillan, and HarperCollins. Big 5 publishers in the US. The vast majority of books in the bookstore are going to be published by one of these groups. So what really sets these folks apart is their scale. They operate on a mass production, mass sales model. What they're trying to do is find one, well, more than one, as many as they can, but a small number of very well-selling authors, and then sell as many copies of their books as they can. As an example, I'm going to list off the top 5 earning authors from 2018, and I'm going to bet you recognize every single name. So we have James Patterson, J.K. Rowling, Stephen King, John Grisham, and Dan Brown. And honestly, I looked at that top 20 list, and the vast majority of them are wildly recognizable because these big publishers grab those authors, they produce a ton of books for them, and then they market and sell them. So aside from the scale that really sets these guys apart, the other aspect of the big publishers, and really true publishers in general, is the amount of work they put into the books. So for a big 5 publisher, if you're an author who's been accepted by one of these publishers, they're going to take your work and they're going to manicure it, they're going to edit it, they're going to design it, they're going to turn it into a real beautiful book. They're going to hire, or they're going to have on staff, graphic designers who are going to lay it out. They're going to get perfect drop caps and, you know, chapter titles and beautiful fonts and a cover that really pops. They're going to do all of that work for you as the author. All you're going to do is give them that book and approve stuff. And they're going to send you a revenue split when books sell. Most of these guys operate on advanced structures too, but that's not as good we're not going to get into that too much today because that's really very much for this specific kind of publisher, and that's not going to apply to a lot of what the other stuff we're talking about. But the important thing to note is that they do all of that design work, the building of the book, the marketing of the book, distribution of the book. They're doing all of that for their authors. And the trade-off is the authors get a very small percentage of the sales revenue. The publisher keeps a lot of that because they're doing so much of that work. So that's our big 5 publishers. Looking next, I'm going to talk about vanity presses. So these guys are notorious and sometimes nefarious in the publishing world. So I want to start right out by saying they're not strictly the bad guys. That's not entirely fair to your vanity press. But they do have 2 very distinct points about vanity presses that make them different than any other kind of publishing experience. So just to open with those 2, I'm going to just kind of lay them out there. The first is they are a paid service for creating your book. That differs from the traditional big 5 publishers we just looked at in that the big 5, you bring your book to them, they accept it, and they don't accept many. They accept it, and they create your book, and they share the profits with you. With a vanity press, you bring your book to them. They don't have to go through an acceptance policy. There's no an acceptance process. They take your book. They say, sure, it's a book. You pay them a fee for whatever services you want. You want it edited, you want it designed, you want a cover, whatever it is you want. You pay them based on each of those services, and they create a book for you. They're a paid service. And then they print off usually a run of books in the hundreds to thousands based on whatever their deal is. Each one's going to be a little different in how they manage it. And then they're done. You've bought your books. They've provided a service that you paid for, and you walk away with your boxes of books to sell them however you can. Those are the 2 main things that separate a vanity press from other sorts of publishers. The paid service aspect and the fact that when your book is done, you're done with them. You're not going to hear from them again until 6 months later when their marketing team realizes it's time to print another book and they start emailing you. Well, they might start emailing you right away, but point being, they're just going to be hitting you up to print, create, and hand off books. So that is the major thing to know about a vanity press. They have a place in the market. They have uses. If you're someone with a huge internet following, you've got a bunch of Twitter followers and Instagram and whatever other social media things kids are using today. You've got a bunch of people that are going to want to buy your book, and you just need those books created in a professional way. This might be the sort of thing you do. You might be perfectly happy shipping out books to everyone that buys them, or you might be making most of your sales in person. You might be the kind of person that goes to events. You're a inspirational speaker or any of that sort of thing where you're going to be traveling around. And granted, traveling with books is a little tedious, but the sort of thing where you're just going to be putting a book in someone's hand and they're going to be handing you money in exchange for that. This might work for you. This is the sort of thing where you don't need the additional publisher help that a big publisher would do with the marketing and the care they put into their authors. For most of us in the publishing world, that's not what we're after, because the majority of people publishing at any level are going to want some support system. They're going to want something helping them along the way in various capacities. So, and that's kind of where vanity presses get their bad name is, an author that has created a book and is really excited about it gets accepted, and I say that with air quotes, by a vanity press, and then 6 months later their book is made, it looks great, they've paid thousands of dollars to that vanity press, and they get a big box of books shipped in, and the vanity press never talks to them again. And that's where that disillusionment can kind of come in. So as long as you understand what a vanity press is and what they do have their uses, but they're not exactly a publisher. They're a printing service more than anything. All right, so next up, we're going to look at self-publishers, which hopefully you've got a pretty good idea about what a self-publisher is since you're here on a Lulu webinar. The other 2 big ones that are going to get thrown around is Kindle Direct, which recently absorbed CreateSpace, so we're not going to list CreateSpace here. They're all one, and Ingram Spark. And there are numerous other smaller self-publishers out there, but these are kind of where we're going to list these big 3 ones here just because we only have so much space on this slide. So thinking about what sets a self-publisher apart from a traditional style publisher is really the control that as we talked about, you bring them the work, they turn it into a book. And that is kind of the structure of that relationship. In a self-publishing environment, it's similar, except that you don't actually hand off the the manuscript to be turned into a book. You create the book. You bring your self-publisher the files and the design, however you got them. You could go to any number of websites or services that produce content and covers and things like that for you on a paid basis. You could have a graphic designer build your cover for you and bring it to your self-publisher. But what really is important here is that where in a traditional publishing model, they do most of that design work for you in exchange for that share of your profits. In a self-publishing model, you do all of the design work, you create the book, and you keep control over all of that. What the self-publisher is doing is they are connecting your book file, this file that you have created for your book as a finished product, to an international distribution network. They're connecting you to print on demand and ebook all around the world so that you can sell your book. And that's the really important thing that self-publishers do, is they enable you to take a finished product book and sell it. So that's really different in that you're still having to do all of the work to create the book. And that's one of those things similar to a Vanity Press where you're probably going to pay some upfront with a self-publisher, not necessarily to the self-publisher, but to someone to edit, to lay out, to create your cover. Sure, you can do all that yourself as well, and that's an option. There are plenty of authors on all three of these platforms that do all of the work themselves. And that's the really beautiful thing about self-publishers, is that freedom and control. The trade-off for doing the work either yourself or buying it serviced through professionals to get your book created is that with these self-publishers, you are going to claim a much bigger percentage of the royalties. With Lulu, you get 80% of your revenue back. I believe Kindle does 70%, and Ingram Spark is, I think, around 70% as well, though please don't quote me on that. I don't know 100%. And I haven't looked at their numbers super recently. And then on top of that, these services are very cheap to use. Lulu and Kindle are both free to get your book created. Ingram only charges you a very small fee to get your ISBN integrated into their network. So work. And then on the other side of that, once it is published, you're also doing that marketing work, which is really one of the key things that sets a traditional publisher apart, is that marketing work. Any professional designer can help you build a book that looks just like a book from a bookshelf, but not everybody can market books. And that's something that traditional publishers are really good at. And that's one of the things that's tricky for self-publishers, is knowing how to market your book. Similar to like I was talking about with a Vanity Press, where you might use them if you've got a huge following and you just need some books created. Lots of people with big internet followings, or even medium-sized followings online, will use self-publishers to get access to print on demand. That is giving them the ability to sell one-offs to each individual customer, ebooks, various formats based on what the consumer might want, being able to offer a low-cost black and white version, a medium-cost color version, and a really expensive, maybe limited edition hardcover. You can do all those different things with print on demand because there isn't a lot of upfront cost to get those products built and available online. All right, and the last of our 4 flavors of publisher is the small. So what you're seeing on the page, on the screen there, is a kind of broad overview. And when I found this number, the less than $10 million in sales a year, or less than 10 new titles a year, that seems kind of crazy to me, to think that a small publisher could be a business that makes less than 10 million in sales. And as I learned more about that figure, it's actually because there's a huge range in what qualifies as a small publisher. So a small publisher could be a rather large business with many employees putting out many books a year. They just aren't as big as those big 5, or even whatever smaller ones might still qualify as a large-scale publisher. So what we're going to look at in our next segment here that really falls into the category of small publishers is how these businesses from any range of sizes, be it the ones that put out 1 title a year and make a few $1,000s, to the bigger ones that put out 100 titles a year and are bringing in millions in sales, is that they have to find efficient ways to create, sell, and market their books for their authors that don't rely on those big cash cow authors that we talked about. Some folks that, again, have a good internet following or have done something to get popular, that will pull in lots of readers, but not the huge amount of readers that, Stephen King's going to pull in. I mean, Stephen King could write a book about just about anything at this point. His publisher's going to put it out there, and we're all going to go buy it. I'm going to go buy it. I mean, I'm a sucker. I know it, and I'm going to go buy it. Just because of the quality of his work historically. He's got that name that really draws them in, regardless of whether it's one of his greatest books or if it's one of his weaker books. Small publishers don't have that luxury, so they need every tool that they can add to their arsenal to really kind of weight the odds in their favor. And this is kind of where things like print on demand come in, because your traditional big publisher, they're going to do offset printing for almost all of their books. And that means a low-cost printing of thousands of books at a time, 10,000, 20,000, 100,000 based on the author. It's going to be a lot. Because with offset, you set a machine to do all of those books in a quick, efficient, repetitious run. Print on demand, alternatively, is pretty quick to print, but not that fast. And it's using digital technology, so a print on demand printer can take a PDF and make one book of a certain type, and then 2 minutes later be making a totally different book, same printing press. An offset printer can't do that. So that's one of those tools that we're going to talk about that, these small publishers utilize to, be able to bring on more authors, cut their margins, make more money, and then in the long run, make more money for their authors. Because just like a regular big publisher, these smaller publishers are going to better share than you'll get with a big publisher, though again, that's going to vary wildly based on the publisher and the deals they have and how that all works. But they're going to be performing. They're going to help you as an author design that book. They're going to help lay it out, get a cover built, publish it, put it for sale online in various retail outlets. They're going to help you get it into bookstores, and then they're going to stick with you and help you market it too, just like a real publisher would, or a large publisher would. One thing that's important to note about smaller publishers, there are some smaller publishers that will charge you upfront fees still, and that can become a really blurred line with a Vanity Press. The key thing to think about is that second point that I made about Vanity Presses, that they hand off the book as a finished product and then they're done. A small publisher that charges you a fee to, create your book, lay out your book, all of those upfront things that have to get done to get it started, will stay with you once the book is done and help you market and take a share of your profits in exchange for that extra work that keeps going into it. So that's an important thing if you're an author and you're thinking about, how you might become a publisher, how you might transition the knowledge that you have as an author to the publishing world, thinking about what kind of publisher you want to be, because it's not unheard of for a small publisher to charge authors a fee once they've been selected or negotiate a deal that has some upfront cost to cover the risk that publisher is taking in, publishing an author that is less well known, because most of these small publishers are going to be doing that. So that's a really important thing to think about as you start to make those I'm sorry, lost my words for a second. As you start to think about the plan that you would have as a publisher, is really that your options are very open as long as your publishing journey is all encompassing. As you are a shepherd for those authors from start to finish, from the minute you take them on until the end of selling their book, which probably never stops happening because of print on demand, right? I mean, even once that book's done, it's been out there for a couple of years, you've done the initial push. Print on demand allows small publishers to have a massive back catalog that's always available, because if someone decides they want one 2 years after the book's printed, we can easily just print off more. All right, so there is a pretty good rundown of what we've got for the various kinds of small publishers. What we're going to do next is I'm going to hand it off to Chelsea, and she is going to talk about publishing and print on demand in the real world.
Cool. Thank you, Paul. We pulled a couple examples of folks that are using print on demand to grow their business. So I'm just going to start from the top. So Lorenzo Etherington, one of my favorites. These are all my favorites, but Lorenzo is half of the Etherington brothers. They are comic book and graphic artists based in the UK. They have a great brand. They've done work for Disney, DreamWorks, 007 franchise, Star Wars, Transformers, and the BBC, just to name a few. So an incredibly impressive client list. And Lorenzo, every couple years, will create a wonderful anthology. You can see we've got the third one up here now. Of all of his artwork and his drawings and maybe stuff that he couldn't fit into other projects, but his audience loves. And so his fans love this. They love buying them. It's been a wonderful additional stream of revenue for him and a way to get creative and try things out that maybe he wasn't able to with his other work that he was doing throughout the year. So love that example. And I think Lorenzo is a really, really great example of someone who uses print on demand really well because he obviously has other jobs. He publishes other books with different companies, but he uses Lulu specifically to make these anthologies and distribute them through the Lulu bookstore. So that's a really good example. Up next is Michael Corey. Michael Corey is a YouTuber and he is a health and wellness influencer on YouTube. His channel has over 270,000 subscribers, and just last year he put out this beautiful cookbook as a supplement to the content that he was putting out on YouTube. So I like this example because Michael, his main bread and butter is YouTube, and putting out that content, putting out video content. But he saw an opportunity to add more value and provide, more valuable content to his users, and something that he knew would help them stay on track with the other things that he's offering. So I think a really smart business move. And so Michael put this out, and I think it's been a great boon for him as well. And again, another way to diversify his revenue and really monetize some of his YouTube content. And so that's been really nice. Last but definitely not least on this slide is Sophie Gamond. This is, again, one of my favorites. I love it. So Sophie is a photographer based in Brooklyn, New York, and she has an affinity for shelters and shelter pets. She loves pit bulls, and she's kind of made it, one of her life's missions to raise awareness and kind of destigmatize pit bulls and get them adopted, and just let people know that maybe are afraid of dogs or have a fear of pit bulls or have heard bad things about the breed, that they're great dogs and they need forever homes just like any other. So every year she makes these wonderful calendars. They're fantastic. I would recommend everyone go to Lulu and get one of these books, but if you need a calendar, Pitbull Flower Power is amazing. But Sophie will make these calendars and print them on demand and use them every single year to help, raise awareness. And what's really, really great about this project is that all of the proceeds go back into supporting shelter animals and donating into pit bull charities and just support systems for these dogs. So I love that. We have a lot of people that will use Lulu to raise money or raise awareness for different organizations or nonprofits that are really close to their heart. And you can see even on the calendar it says benefits animal rescue. So I like these three examples because I don't think any of these people, if you ask them, would say, hey, I'm an author. But you can see that they are, and not only are they authors, but they're also publishers by putting this content out there for the world. So these are all great examples from Lulu.com. Alrighty, up next is our Lulu API. So the Lulu API is our application programming interface, and it's a great way if you have a website or you have access to the back end of your website, you can easily code it into our API, and then you have access to our global print and fulfillment network, and it can really offer a lot of automated solutions for your business or your publishing. So the one I'm going to highlight today, and again, I'm trying to pull examples of things that you may not originally think of for print on demand. So this is another great one. So Duff & Phelps. Duff & Phelps are global financial services providers, and they needed to find an alternative to printing large quantities of an annual report that they would have to every year kind of just guesstimate how many we're going to sell. So obviously that can be an issue trying to guess how many of your investors are going to buy these books, then having to purchase in bulk, then storing them, and then, what do you do with the inventory at the end? So several kind of hurdles they were trying to overcome. And they integrated with our API to automate the process of collecting the order. The order is sent to Lulu to print, and then the end customer is informed of the order status through the fulfillment and the shipping. So this is a great example of a business who is able to plug in to print on demand to cut costs, provide value, and make more money per sale than they were previously, since they were unable to gauge how many copies that they actually needed for this handbook every year. And with print on demand, we touched on this earlier, but books like this are easily updated because you don't have to pay on Lulu. You don't have to pay any charges for revisions or updating your manuscripts or reprinting your work. So for content that has to be updated regularly, this is a great solution. All right, so we'll move along. All right, up next, the mantle. So Lulu Express is a really great way if you need copies of your book quickly and easily. Lulu Express has a wonderful interface that you can get high quality copies turned around pretty quickly. And then Lulu Express is also a really great way to try out all of our formats. So we talked about all the different configurations and how print on demand can be great to find the exact format that's right for your book. Lulu Express is a great way to play around with those if you're not sure what you want your final product to look like. So our Express example is Sean Randall, who founded the Mantle Publishing. Sean might be listening in. If he's still hung out through everything that happened, then what up, Sean? Thanks for tuning in. So Sean is a traditional publisher and he needed help with international fulfillment. The Mantle has a really heavy focus on international stories and making sure that those voices are heard, but he was having problems fulfilling international orders and is now using Lulu Express to print the books that he needs to ship internationally. A little bit of icing on the cake, when I was talking to Sean about using the Mantle as an example for this webinar, he also let me know that in short run pricing, Lulu is a little bit more competitive than his traditional printer in some capacities. So I like to mention that because, as I mentioned earlier, depending on your publishing journey, there are different things that you're going to need to look into. So always be doing your research. Even if you find something that works, even if you have a printer that you like, always be kind of looking and checking out the landscape and seeing what else is available. And that's going to be really important. All right, so up next is Lulu Express plus Shopify. So we just released this app last year. So basically, the Lulu Express app for Shopify is the first and only Shopify solution for print-on-demand books. So this is really excellent if you have your own website that you want to sell through directly. And the benefits of that are multiple, but a few of them that I think are really appealing is that you make more revenue per sale. There's no revenue split because you are distributing your own content to your readers. You can also collect data from the sales. So that's really exciting as well, because if you're selling through, Amazon or Lulu.com bookstore, you're not able to get data from who's buying your book. Just privacy laws don't allow that. But when you're selling directly through your own website through the Shopify app, then you can get email addresses, demographic information that'll help build your email list. And it's really effective in helping you retarget your marketing efforts when you start seeing trends in purchasing. So just a couple great things about the app. And what does it look like in the real world? So if you read ahead, then you already know Marriage 365. So this is a great organization who has an established business that helps couples connect by providing ongoing education and resources. They needed a way to offer this content and diversify their revenue to their audience, but didn't really know how to connect those dots. And one of my favorite things about this example is when I was researching them to put in this presentation, a couple of the folks that they've worked with in our office let me know that originally, Marriage 365 tried to shop this book around to traditional publishers and were basically kind of laughed out of the offices because marriage books don't sell. There's not a market for it. Just all the things that you might hear from these large publishers that, as Paul was mentioning, kind of want to bet on a sure thing. But Marriage 365 was not deterred. They found Lulu, and through using our Express app plus Shopify, they were able to print this book and sell it directly to their users. And one thing that's really exciting about this process and what they've done here is within a span of less than 8 months, they've sold over 10,000 copies of that book directly through their website. And they just published another one for engaged couples. So, I mean, it's opened so many doors from them. Publishing one book has led to them finding a need to publish another. And they're just creating wonderful content that their audience really wants. And I love that they didn't let someone who says, I don't believe that's a viable market, they didn't stop there. They knew that there was a solution for it. So I would just encourage anyone that has a really niche market, print on demand is the place for you. And so you should definitely explore that. And don't shy away from something just because you don't see a lot of other people talking about it. If you know your market, then go after it. All right. And last but not least, for my examples for you guys today, is Lynette Greenfield. So Lynette Greenfield is a favorite of ours at Lulu. She's been with Lulu for quite a while. She's been an author for over 2 decades and has published more than 15 titles. And so she became inundated with inquiries about her process and saw an opportunity to grow her business. So after she had published successfully multiple titles on Lulu, people were continually asking her, hey, how did you do that? How can I do it? What is your process? And so she saw an opportunity to grow her business and use Express plus Shopify to create her own imprint. So that is really exciting that she's, moved. I mean, exactly what we're talking about today, but literally made the move from author to publisher within the past, I would say 8 to 10 months, and is continually growing that business. And by utilizing our Shopify app, she has a really nice experience when you go to the website. It's really great that she, again, like all of these people that we mentioned, never has to worry about inventory. There aren't any upfront costs that you have to worry about. And she can remain really agile with what she's offering to her customers by utilizing these solutions. So those are just a few examples for you guys today. And kind of went through the different Lulu offerings that we have to just show you that the economy of print-on-demand technology is really robust. And even if you use it as Lorenzo does, as just a supplementation of what you're already doing, if you use it to the other extreme, like Lynette is doing, where you are using print-on-demand technology to basically be the foundation of your business and growing off of that, print on demand is a wonderful solution and can kind of meet you wherever you are in your journey. So I'm going to kick it back over to Graham, who's going to kind of wrap this up for us.
All right. Thanks, Chelsea. Yeah. And so, again, I just want to apologize again for the technical difficulties here. We will be sending out some slides afterwards so you can review them, and we'll have links as well so you can also just go through them and learn at your own pace. So just to wrap things up, I know that we've gone over a lot of information here, and I'm sure that we'll all have some questions to answer soon, but I'd like to just do a quick recap of what we've gone over so far. So if you didn't already know what exactly print on demand was before the webinar, we really hope that you understand the basics, just listed below. So, with print on demand, it is exactly what it sounds like. No more ordering minimum amounts and crossing your fingers that they sell. You can actually say goodbye to inventory costs, which is really nice for most people. Also, you also have complete control over your work. So making edits to your books, setting the price, reformatting, deciding where to sell your book, all of that is up to you. You have 100% control of your work. Additionally, it also has the same exact quality as offset printing, and a lot of times we're seeing it at a lower price as well. And obviously, print on demand, it's a very lean process. So simply by printing only what you need, you're making a huge impact on being environmentally friendly, which is a huge step forward in the publishing industry for us. Lastly, print on demand also gives us more users more versatility, with your product. So, like I said before, you're able to offer multiple formats. You can recreate and tweak books to match, niche business needs. All of that power is in your hands. And then lastly, as we mentioned before, don't let the term publisher overwhelm you. If you self-publish a book, you already are a publisher, like you're there. So, we really encourage you to just look around and do some exploring to see what options are out there for you. There's dozens of publishing platforms, more than dozens out there, and these tools that Chelsea just mentioned to you, they're all perfectly fine to, even just use as a supplemental tool. So just to clarify, we'll go through them real quick. The API, perfect way to plug into your printing system, and help out automate the entire fulfillment process of your orders. The Express app is exactly what it is. It's a very simple approach to creating and printing books. It also has a multitude of uses, as an author, like she mentioned before, going, tapping into that international market. And then for the Express Shopify app, it's also a very easy, clean way to sell your books and fulfill your orders without forcing customers to ever leave your site. It's basically a white label offering, extremely easy to use. So check them out. Like we said, we will be sending over some emails after this with the slide deck, we'll also have dozens of other resources as well. So we've got some links at the very end of this deck. So we will have a link, with some more information to the Shopify, as well as anything that you want to know about print on demand. We have there too. And then I guess we could just open this up to some questions that we've actually collected throughout the webinar.
Yeah. So, like Graham said, thank you all for bearing with us. And I'm going to I've got a few questions we've grabbed out of the questions section. And I'm going to answer a few of those now. And then feel free, as I'm going through this in the last 5 minutes or so we have with you all today, to add some more. And we'll go through and review them. And, any of them that really stand out that we think are going to be beneficial for y'all, we'll write those down. We'll actually write out some answers and we'll publish them somewhere. So I'm going to leave this resources slide up just for the moment because a couple of these questions I'm going to answer, I'm going to refer you to our blog, and you can see those a couple specific URLs, but just blog.lulu.com is the general URL, and you're going to find a lot of information about specifics, details, really written out examples that you can kind of pore over. You're going to find on there. So first question that I'm just going to do real quick because Graham covered it really well in his recap is, how does the process with Lulu Express and Shopify work? Do people place the order with Shopify and Lulu fulfills it? Essentially, yes. We have built through our API, which I'm going to touch on a question with very quickly here. With this API, we've created infrastructure of technology that allows us to connect our software to our printers all around the world. How that technically works, I have no clue. I'm a writer. I assume we've got some engineering wizards with magic coding skills somewhere doing this somehow. I don't know. But all of that stuff gets connected so that when you sell a book through your Shopify store or through whatever web store you might have built yourself that's connected to our API, there's some stuff in the computer that goes flying out on the internet and it gets to us, and we reference that to the file you've already sent to us for the book. And then we send that off to our printers with the shipping information, and they print it and they ship it. And you basically are just sitting there watching all this happen. You don't even have to be watching it happen. You can go do some other stuff you want. That's a really cool part about it. So yes, it's all about automation. That is the huge thing that we are offering for anyone from author to publisher, is the ability to automate these processes. Next question, does Lulu have design tools on the website to help design the book cover, or does Lulu offer design services? So on Lulu.com and on Lulu Express, we have a couple of tools during the process that will allow you to create a cover by grabbing a template, uploading an image, dropping some text in. They're not going to get you the most versatile cover build. You're going to, if you really want a professional looking cover, your best bet is to do it yourself with a piece of software like InDesign or Photoshop, or to hire someone. We also do offer some design services. You can find those on our website, and that's through a team that we work with that does all of our services. So it's good because we have a very good relationship with them. We're close to them, so we can really help you out and making sure that you get exactly what you wanted. But for the most part, I really recommend kind of figuring it out for yourself, either building your own or hiring someone and working with someone directly. Like, you can go through our services or any publisher services really and buy a cover design. But more often than not, I find people get the best results when they find a graphic designer that they love the work already, and they connect with them directly, and they work out a deal with them, and they purchase that service from another individual creator. You're a creator if you're an author, even if you're a publisher and you're looking to hire a graphic designer. I really think the best thing to do is try and connect with someone directly. And the internet makes that easy. So it's easier for me to say that now than it would have been 10, 20 years ago. Next question, does Lulu have marketing resources? This is where I will direct you to our blog. Blog.lulu.com has a ton. Also, if you head over to YouTube, our Lulu University, we've also got that bit.ly link for that on this page. And so once we send out this slide deck, you can just grab that and go find it. But if you go to YouTube and you search Lulu University, you're going to find a bunch of videos narrated by our Chelsea here, who's going to really walk you through the processes of every aspect of self-publishing and broader publishing. Tons of marketing resources in there. So that's a great place to look as well if you're more of a video person. Likewise, if you really want to read up on some information, check out our blog. One person asked, what is an API?
Application Programming Interface.
Thank you, Chelsea. As I talked about in that answer to the first question, it is the magic technology coding in the background that happens that lets whatever you've used to sell books, Shopify, WooCommerce, your own engine that you've built with your own coding magic. Sorry, I don't understand how any of that works. Yeah. Anyway, it's what lets everything plug in. It's really this magical system of codes working together so that you can, on your end, sell a book and tell us what to do. And then what we do is we take a file that you'll have provided us ahead of time, associated with that sale, to make you a book. It's a really simple but complicated process, and it's what allows us to be so versatile.
I've kind of heard it. Yeah, the API can be a little bit complicated for many of us to understand. But one of the ways that I've heard it described that I thought was helpful was it's kind of like if you go to a restaurant and you're looking at the menu, you order something off the menu, and then the waiter takes it back and you get your meal. The kitchen provides the meal. So it's sort of thinking about it in that term. It's you place your order, it goes off to Lulu, we give you the completed project. So all the in-between stuff is where Paul's talking about the coding and the transmission of the data so that we can make the right book and the right specs. But I kind of like that metaphor, and it sort of has been the one that made the most sense to me, is that you don't need to see how the sausage is made, but it comes back to your plate and it's made. Weird metaphor, sorry. I don't know.
But it works. All right, so we've got about a minute left. I see 2 more questions here. I'm just going to hit real quickly. One, do we offer spiral bound books? Yes, we do. Spiral, saddle stitching, hardcover and softcover, perfect bound. Mm-hmm. I encourage you to check out our Express site. It has a nice pricing calculator. You see a button that says pricing. And that's a really cool way to price out, spec out, and see what a book will look like and kind of toy with that. Last question I'm going to hit on really quickly is a question about integrating with our distribution partners. There's no easy way to explain that in 30 seconds, but we send the resources for your file to these retailers. When they make a sale, they use it to produce the book, ebook or print. Then they send those revenue figures back to us on a regular basis so that we can pay you. That's a real simplified version. If you head over to the blog or you check out our YouTube, we've got a lot more depth there. Mm-hmm. All right, so we are right at that 1 hour mark. So I want to cut us out before we run it over on anybody. I want to thank everyone for attending. It's really great to have you here. I want to apologize again really quickly for those audio difficulties. We're going to throw this microphone away and get a much better one for the next webinar. And yeah, I just really thank you very much for coming in.
Oh, and if we have any other questions, just really quickly, webinars@lulu.com is where you can send anything that we didn't touch on today, or if you need any additional information or support. And thank you guys so much. Enjoy your Wednesday.
All right. Thank you, everybody.